Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephen Carter. I'm an editorial director, and I'll be chairing today's ITV webinar. We're delighted to be hosting a webinar with Plaid today, discussing breaking down barriers, how open banking will revolutionise European iGaming payments. This will explore the potential of open banking to revolutionise the landscape for iGaming payments in Europe, not only by seamlessly initiating instant payments for players, but also supporting enhanced player protection for operators. Our expert speaker today is Plaid's head of product for Europe, Albert Malikov. I will let Albert introduce himself and the company more fully shortly. There'll be a Q&A section following the presentation and discussion, so please do submit questions as we go along. We'll try to address as many of them as possible in the allocated time. With that, I'm going to pass over to Albert. Over to you, Albert.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Very excited to be today here and talk about open banking and open banking payments specifically for iGaming. So, 1 second, I'll just move to the next slide. My name is Albert, and I'm leading Plaid's product in Europe. I'm based out of Amsterdam, where we have our engineering, product, and design headquarters. So I joined Plaid around 2 years ago. I've been in fintech and payments for many years, very passionate about this topic. So it's going to be a good conversation today. So before going sort of like specifically into the overall sort of like some of the needs that iGaming industry has in terms of the open banking, I wanted to introduce Plaid for those of you who haven't heard about the company before. Plaid is the world leading open banking platform. We are the only transatlantic player having the presence in US and also in Europe. So what we do, we allow consumers connect just get access to their financial data and also make and receive payments in the financial applications. So the way sort of like it could be visualized, we are really sort of like this ecosystem player in between the financial institutions. So we have more than 11,000 financial institutions connected to our network, again, across both sides of the Atlantic. So we have banks connected in UK, in different European EU markets, US and Canada. And on the other side, we have digital and financial applications that are using that financial data and the payment services on our platform. So some of the things where sort of like Plaid is really stands out among other players are, first of all, sort of like developer experience. So Plaid is built by developers for developers. So as you can imagine, for 11,000 different financial institutions, there are lots of complexities. And over the past years, we learned how to abstract that complexity and surface our products and solutions to our customers in a very simple and easy way. So this is one. So having the connectivity across the many different regions are another thing that really very important for us and very important for our customers. So one thing I wanted to also highlight here is the Forrester report that was published this year, and for a number of reasons. First of all, obviously, we look good in this report, but most importantly, what is important is, so this report was specifically tailored for the European region, and so being the company that founded in US, so we came to the expanded to the European market around 3 years ago. And for this time, we demonstrated a very high velocity of building the products, adding the new regions. So we really sort of like appreciate that independent research sort of like highlighted the progress that we made throughout these years. And so looking forward in building even more capabilities in the region. So the next thing is sort of like more specifically what is probably interest of this audience is, so what does open banking mean for the iGaming industry? So there are a few sort of like potential problems or opportunities that we're seeing that could be solved with the open banking solutions in the iGaming industry. Well, first, from payments perspective, we're seeing that overall, sort of like the industry is seeing quite sort of like lower card acceptance rates for a number of reasons. Second, so the overall sort of like traditionally this industry been high risk of chargebacks that sort of like create a lot of challenges for the players using the card payment mechanisms. So the settlement of the funds, both for the consumers and then for the merchants, are also not often instant. So which sort of like opening up the opportunity for players like us. And so we also seen a lot of we've seen a lot of opportunity in terms of making the community safer, gaming community, by sort of like doing better in terms of identification of the players on the platform, and also improving the sort of like overall safety on the platform on the gaming platforms by doing the checking the affordability for the player. So with Plaid, players would be able to seamlessly initiate instant bank payments and also do payouts, verify identity of the users, and check them for affordability. So in terms of sort of like specifically looking at our product suite and how our product suite can map those needs, there are sort of three main buckets here. One is the payments, then the other one is affordability that I mentioned, and the third one is the verification products. So I'll start with the payments. So two main offerings here. So first offering is essentially the pay-in solution, where the players can instantly fund their accounts on the iGaming platform by initiating bank transfers. So we believe that overall, sort of like the instant payments creates a lot better engagement, and so the user experiences that are coming with this solution overall make the experience for the players make the experience for the players smoother. So this is pay-ins. Payouts is the other part of the equation there. So after players being on the platform, and when they want to withdraw their funds on their bank account, so the sort of like the instant payout comes in, and we believe that is very important for players being able to easily, with a few clicks, get the funds back to their bank accounts. So those are two solutions on the payment side. And then, so we have three solutions that could be used for the affordability side of the iGaming industry. So those solutions are transactions where the players' bank account transactions can be used on essentially making a decision on sort of like if that specific player can afford playing on the platform. So the other products that we have, such as balance and assets in combination with transactions, can be used for the same cause. The verification product, the products that we have, allow us to do a couple of things. First is the identity that can be used again just to make the platforms safer, but at the same time they can use for various compliance use cases too. The auth product that we have enables like seamlessly set up payouts. So the example here, instead of asking users to manually enter their payout bank information, users can just like simply with a few clicks connect their bank account, and this information will be pre-populated and also verified. So this again can be used for compliance purposes too. So those are sort of like the main products, and I just wanted to go through these slides just to start the conversation. So with this, I'm happy to move to the Q&A session, and I believe Steven so had some questions. Happy to start off like this.
Thank you for that introduction, Albert. Okay, yep, I'm gonna just ask Albert a few questions now. Just sort of expand upon some of the points you raised in his overview, his introduction there. So the first area I want to look at is sort of meeting the needs of the iGaming industry, because I know you guys work in a lot of different sectors. To sort of, how can open banking through sort of platforms such as that provided by Plaid, how do you see that actually improving the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a few vectors there, which I somewhat touched a little bit in the slides before. So the first vector is a safer sort of like gaming community. By essentially creating a better tools for identification of the users, and also making sure that only the actors that are sort of like supposed to be on the platform are there. So essentially, the like open banking tools can make this processes smoother without adding additional friction for the users, can make the overall sort of like the iGaming platform safer. That's first vector. The other one is when we talk about the instant and very simple pay-in and payout solutions. To me, it's the opportunity for improving the engagement on the platforms. So essentially, I think we all sort of like now just have these expectations of instant services. So even when I order food in some of the platforms this day, food gets delivered in 5 minutes. So just like waiting on your funds get into the platform for more than seconds doesn't feel like a good solution. So just having this ability to instantly move money in and out of your platform, so we think is going to be a big contributor to improving the engagement, so that players can like dynamically react to what is happening on the platforms. That's second. The third one, so we, as I mentioned before as well, sort of like trying to remove all this payments complexity, payments compliance. Sometimes it is really quite complicated. And so we want the iGaming companies really sort of focus on their core proposition. And we would like to sort of like take that sort of like payment related complexity on our side and solve this problem for iGaming companies, so that they can truly sort of like focus on improving the experience for their players elsewhere. So those are three things I believe where open banking can truly sort of like make an improvement for the industry.
Okay, so I want to sort of hone on something you touched on there, sort of, which is the real-time payments. I mean, why are they so important to iGaming? And are they particularly important to iGaming compared to other sectors? And what's your take on that?
Yeah, so well, maybe just like putting myself also sort of like in the shoes of the some of the players. So sometimes I like doing some sort of I like using some platforms as well. So I understand the importance of like lots of things on those platforms are very dynamic. So you either need to put a bet on something and just like immediately move money in and out of the platform. And the fact that sort of you need to wait when your money will be funded or when your money will be taken out of the platform, I think creates sort of like sort of it's not really sort of like a solution for that people expect, and having that sort of like instant aspect added to these solutions will so as we're actually seeing from research as well, sort of like increasing the engagement on the platform, so people can actually do more actions, they can do more bets, or they can play more games on the platforms. So in that sort of like sense, we believe sort of like the instancy is very important, and I think that is actually sort of like not only for this industry. If you think about sort of like payments in general, so this is becoming a universal expectation from the consumers.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Just moving on to, I want to touch another thing in the presentation you raised as well, is the area of responsible gaming. Obviously, this is becoming increasingly central to the sector across, you know, a number of markets across Europe and across the world, really. So I sort of want to sort of touch upon how, you know, how can payment companies and products such as Plaid, I mean, how are you supporting the development of safer playing environments for players across these regulated markets?
Yeah. That's a good question. So, well, gaming is, the way I see this, is entertainment, right? So there are a lot of positive effects of that. So it gives endorphins. I like sort of sometimes going to when I go to Vegas or just like doing it sometimes online, just playing for some fixed amount of money. And so the way sort of like I'm thinking about this is sort of like until the moment when sort of like it's controlled, and so it doesn't bring harm to the individuals, it actually sort of has a bunch of sort of like different sort of like positive effects, right? But then sort of like on the other hand, we also understand that potentially there are cases where sort of like it could create very negative consequences for players, and sometimes things can get out of the control. So we believe that overall open banking and our solution gives really very powerful tools for iGaming companies to essentially just create this more responsible communities where they can do some checks on their players and try to sort of like limit those negative consequences that I've been talking about, and more or less sort of like maximizing the overall sort of like happiness of their players.
Okay. Another question I have is sort of about you touched on the affordability. Obviously, that is for the affordability checks are something that's been considered as part of the review of the Gambling Act here in the UK. For Plaid, I mean, is that something? Is that something you speak? How do you go about developing that? Is that just something that you speak to regulators about that in particular territories and stuff? I mean, how are you actually developing your product actually in anticipation for these kind of for these checks coming in across? Because as we've seen in the regulated markets across Europe, what happens in one market tends to get kind of replicated in others as well. So how are you? Is that something you're developing with that in mind as a company, that this is going to be something that you're going to increasingly be asked for?
Yeah, totally. We are sort of like very actively following those regulations, and so the way we're thinking about this as well, right? So we are the platform that performs the connectivity to the bank accounts of the consumers, and bank accounts are a place where there's a lot of data. And sort of like this data could be really sort of like very powerful for this type of use cases. So as mentioned before, so we have a number of products already in place that sort of like allows to use this data as a tool for iGaming company to not only be compliant with the new regulations that coming on the market, but also sort of like making a step to creating more responsible communities as well, even regardless of the regulation. So the way we see our role here is more sort of like a tool to sort of like easily create those safe and responsible communities for the iGaming companies.
Okay. So a lot of the companies listening today, obviously, everyone is the US is the market in a sense for many companies at the moment. That's seen as the big opportunity. So I mean, what do you see as the key differences between the US and Europe when it comes to open banking consumer payments? And I guess also in the US as well, it's also happening on state by state level as well. So I'd just be interested to hear, you know, what you see as the key difference between those markets as well, and also how you're rolling out over there in those different markets as well.
Yeah, totally. So I think very different markets in a way. That's why we also, as a company, investing in having a local presence, not only in US but also in Europe. So we have the team that pretty much sort of like every 6 months doubling in the size here in Europe. And so eventually I think that a lot of differences that exist at this moment of time in the next 5 to 10 years, probably they will converge, because some of these payment solutions, they all sort of like are going into the similar direction, but there are like so many underlying differences at this moment of time. Just to mention a few. So first of all, like US is very sort of like homogeneous market in terms of the payment preferences. So it's just like one market, and people usually sort of like tend to do payments in a very similar way across sort of like all the states. While when we look at EU and UK, so very, very different preferences. So people tend to pay one way in the Netherlands, where I'm based, while sort of in other markets like France or UK, preference are somewhat different, right? So this is one difference. The other one is so the payment sort of like rails and underlying infrastructure is on the very different stages of the development. So in Europe, we are, for a number of reasons, sort of like somewhat ahead, having the real-time payment systems like faster payments in UK, SEPA Instant in the in EU, which actually allows just to innovate a little bit differently compared to the US. So the regulatory regimes are very different as well. So yeah, so regulators actually taking sort of like a different approaches, sort of, yeah, we clearly see that it creates implications. Yeah, we one thing sort of like what we're trying to accomplish for our customers as well is we're trying to sort of like abstract that complexities across different regions in one very simple solution. So specifically for a lot of customers that are operating across, that are global and operating across the ocean, yeah, so they don't need to get into sort of like very deep into all these complexities in US and in Europe. So we can solve their problems with the very simple solution and can help them with those complexities.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I don't know, I want to kind of touch on as well in terms of the opportunity for the industry is, have you seen, see, open banking is, you know, it's still being rolled out, it's still early, but how have you seen the implementation of open banking options sort of improve the consumer experience? I guess you can talk about other sectors you've worked in, more specifically iGaming as well, if you've got some sort of case studies or experiences from there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very passionate about this topic as well, because I think there are a number of sort of like areas where the experience for the consumers could be better. One area is open banking payments. They are mobile native payments, and you know, like as we all know that. So we're heavily relying on the mobile experiences these days, and the traditional payment instruments, they were not built for the mobile payments. Sometimes when I'm typing in the card information or trying to go through 2FA authentication for the card payment on my mobile device, it's really a very clunky experience. While with the open banking payments, because this payment instrument was built relatively recently, it was actually sort of like built for this this day needs of the consumers. The experience is very smooth. So it actually leverages biometric authentication of your phones. So on the if someone is using iPhone with the sort of like simple Face ID, you can confirm your payment. So this I believe you know, like just quite substantially improve the experience for the end consumers. This is one. Second, so again, right, given the this payment instrument is relatively new, there was a lot of security measures baked into these payments. So they are just like making overall payments more secure for the consumers. I already mentioned that strong customer authentication being used. So using the biometric. So that's why those transactions are a lot more protected versus the other payment mechanisms. So you're not sharing your information with anyone. You're not sharing your information with the merchant. So it's all sort of like stays with your financial institution. So this is second. And so something that we already discussed a little bit. So those open banking payments are just like magically instant. And just having when you have the experience when you making a payment with a few clicks, and then money is sort of like immediately available for you for the further actions on the platform. I think that so it's a lot better consumer experience, in my opinion.
Okay, that's great. So I just want to move on to the sort of looking at the actual process of implementing. Sort of, and what did iGaming companies, what would they be well advised to sort of understand first about open banking ahead of kind of implementing a solution like this in order so they can fully leverage its benefits?
Yeah, so I think when someone looking to sort of like get deeper into the open banking and maybe choose a partner in this space, few things are important in my opinion to look at. First is the maturity of the players. So open banking is, especially this year, became really a buzzword, and there are tons or hundreds of different players available out there on the market. So it's very important to essentially build the longer term partnership and try to sort of like work with the battle-proofed players who have been having more sort of like consistent traction and results over the past years, and also sort of like are on the good track on being sort of a reliable partner going forward as well. So this is one, maturity of the player. Then geographical presence is very important as well. So as we know, sort of like one of the, especially for the players operating across a number of regions, one of the biggest complexity is just managing number of different partners. And sort of like it creates a lot of operational inefficiencies and sort of like costs of doing that adds up as well. Just so having a player that can support you today and your today needs and future needs across number of regions is very important. Then the other important thing, in my opinion, is developer experience, which actually sort of like you start getting into only at the point of the integration. So so what we're seeing is that there is a little bit of sort of like difference between European customers and US customers. So in US, a lot of customers just building the POCs in the beginning, and they're going through the sort of like developer experience, so they getting like all feel of the product immediately. And in Europe, sometimes sort of like a lot of decisions are made before sort of like testing the products. I really encourage just going to the sandbox of the different providers, just testing, building the, trying to build a POC, because you'll see that the developer experience is vastly different provider to provider. So as I mentioned before as well, so like we're investing a lot of time in making those integrations very easy, so that just it requires very, very little time to do the integration and maintain the integration in the future. Yeah, so the other two things I would mention, just like one is innovation velocity. So this space is new, and a lot of new things will coming up on the market. So we're already seeing some of the new exciting features as variable recurring payments coming on the market. So just understanding the innovation velocity of the player is very important, because it's gonna sort of like show how quickly that players will be able to add new features that will be sort of like will create the additional value for you as a business. And last, but certainly not the least one, which is very relevant for the payment solutions, is sort of like the so-called sort of like full stack solution. So open banking payment is just like the part of the sort of like the payment instrument. So in order to have a very good payment instrument that solves a number of use cases for you as a company, you need to make sure that you are purchasing the full stack solution, where you can do not only pay-ins but also payouts, where you can actually just like very effectively reconcile the funds and many other things. So those are, I think, sort of like the main criteria I would look at as I'm thinking about the open banking and open banking provider.
Okay, that's great. So in terms of the challenge, I mean, what about the educational piece, the gaps in awareness? I mean, how is that a big challenge for you as a business? I mean, not just educating, you know what I mean, positions who potentially use the product, but also the audience, you know what I mean, the users, the consumer. Is that a big challenge for you as a company, and sort of how are you bridging those awareness gaps and understanding of open banking and what your product does?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, first of all, I think it's vastly improved over the past couple of years. If 2 years ago, just like talking about the open banking, we had to do so much education for the customers. These days, so we feel that a lot more players in the industry understand what open banking is, and they have a better idea of the use cases that they would like to use it for. So it's definitely became like a lot better. But at the same time, it's still sort of like not at the level where it should be, and we're doing sort of like number of things in this space. So have our policy team that is publishing materials that could be actually found on our blog, where so you can read more and understand more about sort of like where the industry is going, what are the sort of like major topics that are being discussed between the regulators, between the open banking providers. So this is one area, and so frankly, sometimes it's just like probably just like easier to send us a message or just giving us a call. We always happy to jump on the call and share materials, and also sort of like walk through the sort of like use cases, how we see them, and sort of like help in this one-on-one engagements too.
Okay, great. So how long does it sort of typically take companies to implement this sort of solution then?
Yeah. So again, right. So this is comes back a little bit to this developer experience that we already touched a little bit. This is something we are very, very proud, and so that simplicity of our interfaces that we have comes with a lot of investments under the hood, and sort of like all that complexity is hidden from our customers. So overall, we're seeing that depending on the type of the customers, size of the customers, we're seeing that the integration could be actually built in a matter of the weeks using our solution. So we have very good documentation on the website. So we have a lot of tools that are very, very much sort of like modular, where our customers sort of like don't need to essentially build some of the elements, and they can use our SDKs, and they can use our libraries and do it in a very, very simple way. So over the past 8 years, we've been seeing, and we've been getting so much feedback from our customers. So that's why it's sort of like we kind of like polished this part of our offering quite a bit. And so some of our customers we're seeing sort of like they pulling the POCs within a couple of days as well. So they're not production. It's not a production solution. However, sort of like within a couple of days, engineers can just like quickly get the solution tested, and that's already sort of like gives the next level confidence on moving to the more production ready solutions.
Okay, thanks, Albert. I've sort of come to my questions actually, so we've now got sort of some time to address some from the audience. So I just sort of like to kick off by sort of looking forward to next year. Obviously, quite close to there now. I'm just wondering what sort of predictions you have about how sort of what your top predictions are. Say top 3 predictions for the payments sector in 2022 are. How do you expect these? What do we expect to see in terms of payment methods changing and coming through?
Yeah. So that's an excellent question, and probably a good part of the year to make predictions for 2022. Well, so probably unsurprisingly, we are expecting open banking payments to gain even more traction. So we've seen quite substantial growth in the usage, specifically in the UK this year. So we expect that this growth will continue, and more sort of like players will be using this solution. So more and more consumers in the UK and around Europe will be sort of like exposing themselves to this payment solution for the first time. So this is the sort of like I guess like the first trend, and some of the sort of like underlying trends behind that as well. So as I mentioned, Europe is not the sort of like fully not fully sort of like homogeneous in terms of the quality of the APIs, in terms of the sort of like the solutions that are available in different markets. So we're working very closely with our bank partners on and with the regulators as well, and just like making sure that the quality of those solutions are a lot better. So we expect that in the next year, sort of like overall, the quality of the open banking payments outside of UK will be becoming better as well. So yeah, so those sort of like I guess two main sort of like things that we are seeing. Overall, we are very positive about the prospects of the open banking payments. Very much sort of like excited about the developments that is happening in the industry.
Okay, thank you. I mean, for you guys, obviously you're looking ahead. I mean, what sort of coverage are you looking at? Were you targeting a particular amount of coverage in terms of countries and stuff for next year and stuff? I guess you have a pretty watertight, a pretty rigorous, kind of a tight schedule of which countries you'll be launching in at the moment. So that's. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about kind of your rollout and sort of what sort of coverage you're looking at, sort of expanding that in 2022?
Yep, yeah, totally. So first of all, so our very detailed sort of like coverage list of the European markets could be found on our website. So with the and also sort of like we are happy to send more information on sort of like specific banks that we cover in each of the regions. Overall, sort of like our goal so we're already live in the EU in a number of sort of like big markets such as France, Germany, Spain, launching Italy and the Netherlands. So we sort of like as a goal planning by the end of the pretty much sort of like next year being in all the major European markets with a very sort of like decent coverage there. So one thing sort of like we are approaching slightly sort of like different to sort of other providers as well. So when we go to the market, when we launch the market, we have a certain threshold of the bank coverage in that market. Usually it's above 80% of the banks that are covered in those regions. So so if anyone is interested in sort of like some specifics in terms of like market per market, please check out our website. Let us know. We can happy to share sort of like more information.
Okay, thanks, Albert. I think sort of coming to the end now. So I mean, I just sort of got time for today. So I just want to kind of thank Albert very much again for just bringing his expertise and insight today and just sharing that with the audience. I just one thing I want to mention before we go though is today's webinar is being recorded and it'll be available to listen to on demand shortly on iGamingbusiness.com for you to rewatch and share with your colleagues. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephen. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, really enjoyed having this conversation. And yeah, so if there are again sort of like any questions about our solutions, please let us know. Hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn and happy to answer any questions.
Of course, and also just send them through to us as well. We'll pass anything on. The audience has any follow-ups and stuff. We'll make sure we get those through to Albert and we get you an answer to those as well. So, all right. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.